Hello, my name is Erin, and in addition to being a nerd, I am also an IEDP alumna who graduated in 2017. I'm currently based in Honolulu, Hawaii, currently working as a consultant at McCrell International, and at the same time, I am pursuing a PhD in educational psychology at the University of Hawaii. Some current IEDP students asked me to answer a few questions, so thanks in advance for your curiosity, and let's see what you wanted to know about. Student. The first memory that comes to mind is vortexes. What I mean by that is IEDP brings together this fascinating mix of perspectives, ideas, and personalities that when I was there, I knew that there were at least like a few people that I would hang out with, that I knew that as soon as we started hanging out, whether it was for, just casual hanging out or if it was for a study session, we would get sucked into these 4+ hour conversations covering topics from the serious to the silly. So it would take, it took energy to do it, but it was also super fun. So I really loved that. From a programmatic side, I think that running the Learning at the Bottom of the Pyramid conference with some of my classmates, as well as pursuing things like CIES and of course the internship, was also very fun because they were educational, but they also kind of pushed me into this professional realm with the kind of support that I needed to do well. And so those are also very fun experiences. So I always thought that I would be pursuing a PhD in my career at some point. So I'm not surprised that I'm doing it now. But following my graduation from IEDP, I started working. And in my job right now, I provide technical assistance and research support for different education systems in the Pacific region, and mostly related to language and literacy topics. And so about, 2 years working in the job, I started noticing that there were some gaps in my knowledge. And at the same time, I started to kind of forge a clearer path of what my long-term career goals would be, at least making them look a little bit sharper in my mind. So the PhD was the next logical step for me in achieving those goals and filling in those knowledge gaps. So part of my path to my doctoral studies involved figuring out how I could continue to do both, that is work and study, because I didn't want to give up working. I wanted to continue work, but also kind of grow professionally and personally within the program. So I started talking to my HR department. I started inquiring at the university just to see how both would accommodate a working student. And so found out that that was possible, applied, and here I am. Interests. So at the time of recording this video, I am still very much a newbie in my PhD program. I'm only in my 2nd semester. I know that I am interested in exploring metacognition, multilingualism, and Pacific Island populations. So the literature base for that Venn diagram of those 3 is pretty small, but growing. So right now I am in the process of identifying where specifically I can contribute to that knowledge base in both responsible and meaningful ways. So as I mentioned earlier, I started noticing some gaps in my knowledge that, in my mind, prevented my ability to do my best work. And also, thinking for my long-term career paths, wanting to kind of stay within research, a PhD is pretty much a prerequisite for that work. So in other words, I'm setting myself up for future mobility and advancement in my career, while also trying to pursue that noble deed of self-growth in my knowledge. All right, so you may not be surprised that the field of educational psychology at least, its origins and its main scholars, tends to be very weird. Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. As a white privileged woman, I can certainly fall into interpreting my studies through those perspectives without questioning it at all. But I think that the IEDP has helped me gain new vocabulary and perspectives so that when I do approach my studies or discussions about my work, I am thinking about what cultures are being represented, who is being represented, who is directing the narratives, and how researchers can be mindful and effortful in kind of broadening our concepts of the world. I know that IEDP helped. There were other experiences that I've had to continue to build my knowledge in that area. And I've been trying to integrate all of these aspects into my work and my studies. But I also recognize that it is a process and definitely not a destination. But IEDP definitely helped enrich that process for me. It is so easy to fall in and out of networks that you build. So while I was going through IEDP and just after finishing the program, I thought I was doing a pretty decent job about reaching out to folks from different organizations, staying in touch, learning from them, informational interviews, things like that. Cold calls, emails, having a bunch of contact cards from CIES. Once my job took me away from those networks, the ties that I created from the program started to wither, and I was building new ties with my job, but I don't think I could as easily cold call someone from UNESCO, for example, and say, hey, can I chat? So I think essentially I wish I had known that it's very easy to fall out of or to lose those connections, and that maintaining them requires a lot more efforts to be able to rely on them at any point. So I would also actually say that probably applies to staying in touch with the IEDP cohort. However, I would also say that it really, the strength and the breadth of your network really depends on you and what makes sense for you in your career. So I am definitely a planner. So my advice kind of makes sense within that context. So I think that the decision must be taken seriously. It is a significant commitment of your time, your finances, and other resources. So I would say that really make an effort to plan things out from a logistical standpoint. So this might look like thinking of listing out the sacrifices that you're willing to make, the opportunities it will provide you, even a pro and con list if that helps. But also to kind of think about it from an emotional standpoint, does this decision feel right for you? And I would also supplement that with conversations from current PhD students, former PhD students, and even students or people who thought about pursuing a PhD but decided against it, because all of them can support your decision-making process. Importantly, you're the one who has to make that decision. So really spend a lot of time thinking about whether it is the right decision for you. There is a Hawaiian proverb that I've learned that I think is really applicable to the advice I would give to current and future IEDP students. And it is, "A'ohe pau ka'ike I ka halau ho'okahi." And this proverb states that all knowledge is not taught in the same school. I think it speaks to the diversity of knowledge that exists in this world, but also I think it speaks to the ways in which you can learn and from whom you can learn. So my advice to current and future IEDP students is to really examine your current concepts of who is an expert and what knowledge is valuable, and see how you might be able to expand that those concepts or those definitions. I know that you are in a university setting that has some very strict versions of who is an expert, but I think you can truly learn from so many different people, and they may be unexpected to you. I think this proverb is also an exercise in humility, which I think makes us more able to experience and learn what's going on, not only in IEDP, but beyond it. Okay, if you've gotten to the end of this video, thanks so much for watching and listening. I'm sorry that the conversation is so one-sided, but I'm always happy to chat about IEDP. So please feel free to reach out, or you can add any questions to the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.